Today we're working on a 2008 Ford Focus. We're having cooling issues and there's a leak at the water outlet manifold. You can see it, it's right down here. It's on the right side of the engine cylinder head. And figure we're just gonna go ahead and replace the thermostat while we're at it. So let's jump in. Go ahead and remove the negative and the positive battery terminals. And this one was a 10 mil. Once you remove the battery cables, there's a tab here you can pop up with the screwdriver and disconnect this hose. It's actually not a hose, it's the electrical conduit protector for the negative on the ground side of the battery. Move those aside here, just on threads, and then just pull this rubber grommet off. And then this will expose the threads. And then you can just remove the 2 bolts and the bracket to remove the battery. Okay, so the bolt and nuts on the posts, battery posts, have been removed. We're gonna go ahead and with this 5/16 just or 8 millimeter, remove this nut, and then the bracket to the battery will come off. Just slide the bracket off, and then you can now lift up the battery. And out comes the battery. Removing this tubing off of the valve cover. It just slips off to the side. Then you can follow it to the air intake manifold. Just slip that off. Set that aside. And a vacuum line that comes off the intake manifold. Just go ahead and separate that from there. And this whole piece here will stay together as one piece. Okay, and with your 8 millimeter on 5/16, go ahead and remove the 2 bolts for the air box. And you're gonna loosen the clamp on the throttle body. And you're gonna slide the ducting off of the throttle body. And you should be able to pull up on the air cleaner to remove. So the air cleaner and the ducting will come out. And then next we're going to work on removing this hose assembly and some of the brackets for the electrical. I'm going to start removing some of the electrical connections and setting those aside. On the throttle body, this side, what you'll do is you'll take a screwdriver and the red ring, you'll hold the red ring down and lift up, straight up. There you go. For this connector here, which is for the upper wiring harness for the ECU, there's a tab on the back side. You'll press that down and you'll pull out just like this. So what I did for that lower one, I just removed this connector. You can see where it presses in with these splines, and then push on the tab push on this tab right here real hard just to get it to pop up, and you'll slide it off. That'll be the second one. You'll need to remove the other connectors on the end of this tab. Pop those off, move those to the side. You'll see 2 wiring harnesses. Pop those off and remove those to the side. As well as this, you'll want to take some pliers and squeeze these 2 tabs and push this off and set that aside as well. And there was a clip right here that pushed into the side of the bracket on this slot. I'm going to pull that off, and then this vacuum hose assembly, you can set that aside. Move it over so you can have access to the 2 bolts. Just go ahead and remove the 2 7mm bolts that bolt to the top side of that water outlet. Okay, and then that 3rd bolt that I didn't tell you about is right there. Loosen that one up, remove that, and then the whole bracket that connects your hose assembly and all your electrical components. And that should be removed. So to disconnect the electrical connections for the ECU, you'll just flip these tabs over like so, pop that out, and then out unplug. You'll do the same for all 3. So this 3rd connector down here, it won't come out because of the inlet hose from the radiator, and we need to remove this. And I don't really like the idea of having these pins exposed, so what I'm going to do is remove these smaller bolts and this nut and set the ECU off to the side to gain access to this clamp here. and that will also allow us to remove some of these extra electrical connections out of the way. Okay, we have slid it off the stud, and then we're just gonna pop this last connector off.
If we have no room, I gotta take the thermostat off.
Remove the ECU, and you can see where this connection here is somewhat blocking the clamp, so just unplug that and move that to the side as well. You can see I just slid the clamp back, and we'll go ahead and loosen up the hose and disconnect it from the plastic. What I like to do is I just take the pliers here and just wiggle that hose free just to break it free. See how it's moving on there? And you're going to do that for both of those. And that basically just means it's coming off easily. And it just kind of come right off. And then what you'll do is you'll take that hose and you'll move it up here out of the way. Okay, we're just going to take our 8mm and crack these bolts loose. This one, and there's one on the side. I'll have to get a socket with an extension. But that one and this one are for sure coming off right now. And then there's one on the bottom. We can use our open-end wrench for that. I can't say the design was not too bad. See, you can see my deep well with the adapter from 3/8 to 1/4. And I'm just taking off that last bolt. The whole unit should come off now, and then I'll just remove these two last hoses, and we'll set it on the shop table for inspection. Okay guys, we got the outlet manifold out for the cooling system, and here we are, a blown seat on the inlet. You can see it just popped right there on the top where it bolts to the side of the cylinder head, and it started squirting all this coolant under pressure, and you can see where it was on top, you know, where it squirted up, blew up, and it squirted right on top of everything. So we're gonna have to go ahead and replace this unit with new gaskets, get this all cleaned up down here on the mating surface for the thermostat, get it all bolt back together, and basically just repeat all the steps as what we did to remove the unit, and repeat all the steps in reverse order to put everything back together. See you in a few minutes. Okay, so before we install the new water outlet manifold, I wanted to go over with the old one. You could see where it just blew up here and cracked, and it was spewing coolant out the top. So a couple things that could have caused this was a lack of coolant, no pressure within the system. The cooling system is a pressurized system, so any type of leak, you lose pressure, and then air can get into the system and cause things like this to fail. And also is the thermostat. We went ahead and replaced this. You'll see in another episode where I go ahead and show you how to replace this. But right now, we're focusing on getting this back installed. And if this fails, it can cause this to fail, because the heat from the pressure of the engine, it can't get past this valve here. So the heat, the hot water, coolant stays in the engine and it can't escape. So if you guys are having this same issue, we're gonna go ahead and show you how to put the new one in, and so stay tuned. So we picked this unit up for about $30. It comes with a plug. If your option comes with the nipple for another outlet, go ahead and use that. We're just gonna put the O-ring on this groove here and then plug the orifice. So just remember, if your vehicle, depending on the year, make, and model, they vary with this engine. It could be in a Mazda, but this two-cylinder engine, 2.0 4-cylinder engine is can be used with this tube here. So you'll just have to put if you have this option, put the O-ring on this groove, or if you don't, like in our case, you just put this groove on the plug and then plug this port here before installing the unit to the cylinder head. And before installing, you could just place a little bit of coolant on the O-ring and set it on there, and you'll just plug it off. And before we bolt the unit to the cylinder head, clean the surface on the cylinder, and then we're gonna connect this hose to this port here, and this hose here to this guy here, and then we'll go ahead and bolt it to the cylinder head. Okay, just slip this clamp over the hose on this side, and then we'll go move it over to this side. So for that bottom bolt below this one, you want to use a opening or a combination wrench to get underneath, and then you'll have to feel for that bolt to just cinch it down. Then you just want to slip the upper radiator hose over the outlet, and then install this clamp just like this. So now we have all the hoses back on and the unit bolted, and the hoses back onto the outlet manifold. Go ahead and find your electrical connections. Simply just match them up with the female and the male side, and you want to go straight in. You want to go straight in with the plug. Don't try to twist it or anything. Just try to go straight in, nice and slow, until it snaps. Okay, so now we're going to install the bracket that mounts on the top of this guy and bolt it down with our 3 bolts, and then go ahead and start putting back all the electrical connectors that connect to the bracket. These 2 down here that go right here, and then this one, and another one that plugs into it. And then from there, once we have all the connections plugged in, we'll go ahead and install the ECU back and the battery. Then you just want to take your 7mm, bolt down your bracket, and it doesn't need to be tight, just snug. You want to go straight in and hear the snap. Press all this back. Okay, so now we're going to bolt up the ECU and plug in each connector. So we're going to go ahead and move the vacuum hose assembly to the side and clear a path to bolt in the ECU right here next to this battery tray. So we're going to apply our nut here. That. And the 2 bolts, one in the front and the other one in the back. And these are 5/16. Okay, so for this plug, you want to make sure it's lined up with the slot. You want to go straight in till you get a snap, and then pull the lever back, and then it seats the pins into the connector. Okay, and for this one, I'm gonna make sure it's straight. Push it straight in, like so. And you're gonna push down and lock it down using this lever. And we'll do the same with the upper one. It's in, and then press down and lock it down. Then you can go ahead and tighten up all 3 of your bolts. And then you can, for the hose assembly, you can press that back into the bracket as well. Right here, this tab. Make sure that goes back in the bracket. And then you can slide this back over. Now that we have the computer installed, we can go ahead and set down the battery. Set the battery down in its tray. Okay, I got the battery set in, but I'm not going to place the cables on just yet. We're gonna go ahead and install the airbox and ducting. So this hole here is gonna fit into this hole, and then we'll tighten the 2 bolts down here, and then put the hose on back onto here and tighten this clamp. These don't need to be real tight. You can just hand tighten them. And you want to make sure the pin back there seats into the grommet of the frame. And put your ducting back on and tighten the clamp. And your hose assembly. And the crankcase ventilation snaps over just like that. Follow it down to the air box, and that snaps in just like that. And then you just set your bracket across the battery and run these nuts down. And your last bolt goes here. And for the battery, you're gonna take your 8mm bolt, tighten that down with a 10mm wrench. Tighten both the nuts down on the post, and then go ahead and apply your all thread, and then you can clamp your cable back on. Just wanted to go ahead and double check, make sure the battery's tight, the airbox is on, all the electrical connections and the air hoses are back on into the throttle body. And we'll go ahead and put the positive cable back on and tighten both the battery clamps. Okay, so we topped off the coolant reservoir just below the full hot. So when the engine heats up, you should see this rise and fall. When it's falling, that means it's dumping coolant and replacing air in the cooling system. Same here, just slowly pouring coolant here into the radiator. We're gonna go ahead and start it up and keep the process going and displacing the air for coolant. Okay. Just gonna squeeze this hose to keep the air coming out of this radiator. Keep pouring coolant in as we're squeezing the air from the operator out and getting coolant back into the engine cylinder. As the engine starts to warm up, keep topping it off. Okay, so we topped off the coolant and it's at the top of the radiator. We're going to keep squeezing this upper radiator hose to get that air out of the system. Take it for a test drive to get some gas and get the engine warmed up and pressurize the system and just make sure it's not overheating anymore. Okay, and before you shut the engine off, just make sure your upper radiator hose is hot. That's basically letting us know that the thermostat has opened up, allowing the hot coolant from the engine to flow into the radiator to cool down, and it's now pumping the cooled coolant back down into the engine. And we're just going to go ahead and watch the level on this. Full hot should be up here. And we're going to double check to make sure the cooling fans turn on. Once the cooling fans turn on, from there, just keep squeezing the hose, try to get the air out of the system. You see it starting to bubble up in the coolant reservoir. Once these fans kick on, we'll probably run it for another 10 minutes and then shut it down and let it cool down. And at that point, we'll just keep topping off the coolant in the radiator coolant, the expansion tank for the cooling. And there's our start there, no leak. We're going to hold the engine RPMs about 2,000 with the car not moving, so we can double check that these cooling fans turn on and that there's no leak. No leaks present underneath, so that's a good sign. So our cooling system can now pressurize, start moving coolant through the cooler. Right now we're waiting for the fans to turn on. The fan just kicked on, and we have coolant. I feel coolant passing through the radiator. Let's go check our temperature. And our temperature is steady just at the boat, on the sail on the boat, between hot and cold. Okay, there we have it, guys. Successfully replaced the engine coolant outlet manifold on the right side of the cylinder head. Double check the fans are working and that there's no leaks. And now the engine's we're gonna let it rest, cool down, and watch the level on our expansion tank, the coolant expansion tank. Just make sure it doesn't pass this bottom line. And that's it. Hey, if this helped you guys fix your guys' car and your leak on your Ford Focus 2008 or other year, but if it helped you with your 2.0 engine, 4-cylinder engine, check out some other videos and subscribe. Thank you for watching.